Right now, as you watch this, your mind is under attack, not from a virus, not from a weapon, but from something far more dangerous, a system designed to think for you. And the most terrifying part, you don't even notice it happening. Most people believe they are free thinkers, but they are not. Every opinion you hold, every outrage you feel, every product you buy, how much of it was actually your choice? Researchers who studied the people who rescued Jews during the Holocaust discovered something shocking. The rescuers weren't smarter, they weren't richer, they weren't more religious. They shared specific psychological characteristics that made them immune to the mass conformity that consumed an entire continent. Immune to mass conformity. And here is what should keep you up at night. Those same psychological defenses are being systematically dismantled in the modern world. Today, we are going to uncover the exact mechanisms used to manipulate your thinking, and more importantly, the psychological armor that protects you from all of it. As Viktor Frankl warned from inside a concentration camp, between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our freedom and our power to choose our response. That space is shrinking, and if you do not learn to protect it, someone else will fill it for you. The conformity trap. In 1951, psychologist Solomon Asch conducted an experiment that should terrify you. He placed one participant in a room with 7 actors. He showed them lines of obviously different lengths and asked which ones matched. The actors deliberately gave the wrong answer, and here is the disturbing result. 75% of participants conformed to the group at least once, even though the correct answer was obvious. They chose to be wrong rather than be alone. They saw the truth and chose the lie. Now think about your own life. Have you ever agreed with something you knew was wrong because everyone around you believed it? Have you ever stayed silent when you should have spoken because the social cost felt too high? This is the conformity trap, and it operates beneath your conscious awareness. Your brain is wired for social survival. 10,000 years ago, disagreeing with the tribe meant exile, and exile meant death. That wiring has not changed. But here is what the researchers discovered about those Holocaust rescuers. They had developed what psychologists call an internal locus of control. They believed their own actions mattered regardless of what everyone else was doing. They did not need permission from the group to do what was right. They had rewired the most ancient part of their psychology, and that brings us to something even more dangerous than peer pressure. Emotional hijacking. Every dictator in history understood one thing: if you control what people feel, you control what they think. Control feelings, control thoughts. Modern manipulation does not target your logic. It targets your amygdala, the fear center of your brain. When you are afraid, your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for rational thought, essentially shuts down. You stop analyzing and start reacting. This is called amygdala hijacking, a term coined by psychologist Daniel Goleman, and it is being used against you every single day. Every breaking news alert, every outrage headline, every algorithm-fed controversy. They are not informing you, they are activating your fear response so you stop thinking critically. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux demonstrated that emotional signals reach the amygdala 12 milliseconds faster than they reach the thinking brain. 12 milliseconds. 12. That means you are emotionally reacting before you even have a chance to think. The manipulators know this. They engineer emotional triggers that bypass your rational mind entirely. As Noam Chomsky observed, the smart way to keep people passive and obedient is to strictly limit the spectrum of acceptable opinion, but allow very lively debate within that spectrum. If this is making you rethink how you consume information, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring the depths of your psyche with me. Because what comes next reveals how this manipulation goes even deeper than emotions. Manufactured reality. Here is a question that should disturb you. How do you know what you know? Seriously. Think about every strong opinion you hold right now. Where did it come from? Did you arrive at it through personal experience and careful analysis, or was it fed to you through a screen? In 1988, Noam Chomsky and Edward Herman published their propaganda model, which identified 5 filters through which information passes before it reaches you: ownership, advertising, sourcing, flack, and ideology. By the time a story reaches your eyes, it has been shaped, framed, and contextualized to produce a specific emotional response. You are not seeing reality, you are seeing a carefully constructed version of it. But here is where it gets worse. Social media algorithms have created what researcher Lee Pariser calls filter bubbles. The algorithm learns what makes you angry, what makes you afraid, what makes you click, and then it feeds you more of exactly that, not because it wants to inform you, but because engagement equals profit. You think you are forming opinions, but you are consuming a personalized propaganda feed designed to keep you emotional and clicking. The Holocaust rescuers had something that protected them from this: genuine connections to their own values, not inherited beliefs from their environment. They had done the work of questioning everything they were told. But this leads us to perhaps the most insidious manipulation of all. Identity weaponized. The most powerful manipulation does not tell you what to think. It tells you who you are. And once you accept that identity, you will defend it with your life, literally. Social psychologist Henry Tajfel proved this with his minimal group experiments in the 1970s. He divided people into groups based on something as trivial as which painting they preferred, Klee or Kandinsky. Within minutes, people began favoring their own group and discriminating against the other. Identity was weaponized from nothing. No history, no real differences, just a label, and that label was enough to trigger tribal warfare. Now scale that up to politics, religion, nationality, and ideology. Every day you are bombarded with messages designed to strengthen your group identity and deepen your fear of the other group. Us versus them always. As psychologist Jonathan Haidt demonstrated, once you identify with a group, your brain literally cannot process information that contradicts your group's narrative. Your moral reasoning becomes motivated reasoning. You start with the conclusion your tribe demands and work backward to justify it. The rescuers during the Holocaust shared a remarkable quality. They were comfortable being outsiders. They did not need social approval to feel secure. As Erich Fromm wrote, "The danger of the past was that men became slaves. The danger of the future is that men may become robots." And speaking of becoming robots, what if the greatest manipulation is happening inside your own mind? The inner tyrant. Here is the most uncomfortable truth in this entire video. You do not need an external manipulator. You are already doing it to yourself. Psychologist Leon Festinger discovered cognitive dissonance in 1957, the mental discomfort you feel when your actions contradict your beliefs. But here is what most people miss. Instead of changing your behavior to match the truth, your brain rewrites the truth to match your behavior. Rewrites. You smoke and tell yourself it is not that bad. You stay in a toxic relationship and convince yourself it is love. You follow the crowd and tell yourself you are choosing freely. Your own mind is the most sophisticated propaganda machine ever created, and it runs 24 hours a day without your permission. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of yourself that you refuse to acknowledge. The shadow is the person you would rather not be. When you refuse to see your own capacity for conformity, for cruelty, for cowardice, you become a puppet of those very traits. The rescuers understood something most people never learn. They had integrated their shadow. They knew they were capable of terrible things, and that self-awareness gave them the power to choose differently. As Jung himself warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But recognizing the problem is only half the battle. What comes next is how you actually build the armor. Locus of control. The single most important psychological trait that separates the manipulated from the free is something called locus of control. Psychologist Julian Rotter developed this concept in 1954, and it divides people into two categories. Those with an external locus of control believe that life happens to them, luck, fate, powerful people, the system. They feel powerless, and powerless people are the easiest to control. Powerless people easiest controlled. Those with an internal locus of control believe their own actions shape their reality. They take responsibility. They believe their choices matter, and this single belief makes them nearly impossible to manipulate. Why? Because manipulation works by making you feel helpless. It works by convincing you that the world is too complex, too dangerous, too corrupt for you to make a difference. And once you believe that, you hand over your agency to whoever promises to save you. The moment you believe you are powerless is the moment they win. Every Holocaust rescuer studied showed this internal orientation. They did not wait for permission. They did not wait for instructions. They acted because they believed their actions mattered, even when the entire world told them otherwise. But developing an internal locus of control requires something that modern society is systematically destroying. Solitude as armor. The philosopher Hannah Arendt spent years studying how ordinary people became accomplices to the Holocaust. Her conclusion was devastating. She called it the banality of evil, the idea that monstrous acts are committed not by monsters, but by people who simply stopped thinking. They did not think, and the world burned. Arendt argued that the capacity for independent thought requires one thing above all else, the habit of being alone with your own mind. Not distracted, not entertained, not scrolling, truly alone with your thoughts. And this is exactly what the modern world has stolen from you. When was the last time you sat in silence for 30 minutes without reaching for your phone? When was the last time you wrestled with an idea without checking what other people thought about it first? As the Stoic philosopher Seneca warned 2,000 years ago, to be everywhere is to be nowhere. The rescuers were comfortable with solitude. They had cultivated what psychologists call reflective thinking, the ability to examine their own beliefs, question their assumptions, and arrive at independent conclusions. Solitude is not loneliness, it is the birthplace of original thought. This capacity for solitude is your first line of defense against mass manipulation. Without it, your mind is simply an echo chamber for whatever voice shouts the loudest. And that brings us to the values that make you unbreakable. Authentic values. Most people think they have values. They do not. They have borrowed beliefs. There is a difference between a value you have tested through experience and struggle and a belief you absorbed from your environment because everyone around you held it. Tested values versus borrowed beliefs. Psychologist Lawrence Kohlberg's research on moral development revealed that most adults never reach the highest stages of moral reasoning. They remain at the conventional level, where morality means doing what their group approves of. The rescuers during the Holocaust operated at what Kohlberg called the post-conventional level. Their morality came from within, from principles they had examined, questioned, and consciously chosen. Not because their parents taught them, not because their religion demanded it, but because they had done the inner work of deciding for themselves what was right. A value untested by adversity is just a comfortable opinion. Ask yourself right now, which of your beliefs would you hold if everyone you loved disagreed with you? Which of your values would survive social exile? If you cannot answer that, you do not have values. You have compliance dressed up as conviction. Strip away the mask, burn it in the fire of honest examination, and what remains is a diamond, your authentic self. But values alone are not enough. There is one final freedom that makes you truly untouchable. Frankl's freedom. Viktor Frankl survived Auschwitz. He lost his wife, his parents, his brother. Everything was taken from him, his possessions, his dignity, his name. He was reduced to a number in a death camp. And yet, in the absolute worst conditions imaginable, he discovered something that the guards could never take from him. Freedom. Not physical freedom, not freedom from suffering, but the freedom to choose his response to that suffering. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. This is not motivational poster wisdom. This is a man who watched people die every day telling you that the ultimate protection against manipulation is the space between what happens to you and how you respond. When they trigger your fear, you choose how to respond. When they activate your outrage, you choose how to respond. When they tell you who to hate and who to follow, you choose. That space between stimulus and response is where your humanity lives. The manipulators cannot reach that space. No algorithm, no propaganda, no social pressure can enter that inner sanctuary unless you open the door. But here is the question that changes everything. Are you building that sanctuary right now, or are you waiting until the crisis arrives? The daily practice. Everything we have discussed today means nothing if you do not practice it. Mental freedom is not a concept, it is a muscle, and like any muscle, it atrophies without use. Mental freedom is a muscle. So here is your practical framework. First, practice strategic skepticism, not cynicism, skepticism. When you feel a strong emotional reaction to information, pause, ask yourself, who benefits from me feeling this way? What am I not being told? Is this triggering my fear or my reason? 1. Question your emotional reactions. 2. Identify who benefits from your beliefs. 3. Seek information that challenges your views. 4. Spend time in solitude with your thoughts. 5. Test your values through honest self-examination. Second, cultivate deliberate discomfort with being different. Disagree publicly when you believe you are right. Sit with the anxiety of not belonging. That anxiety is the price of freedom. Third, build a daily practice of solitude, 10 minutes of silent reflection. No phone, no input, just you and your thoughts. A trained mind, a shield of awareness, and the clear sight to see through the illusion. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal nearly 2,000 years ago, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. That power is yours, but only if you claim it. The researchers who studied Holocaust rescuers found something that should give you both hope and urgency. The qualities that protected those individuals: internal locus of control, authentic values, comfort with being an outsider, and the freedom to choose their own response. These are not genetic gifts. They are developed, they are practiced, they are chosen. You are not born free, you become free through daily conscious choice. Right now, the systems of mass manipulation are more sophisticated than anything in human history. But so is your potential for awareness. Every time you pause before reacting, you strengthen your mental armor. Every time you question a narrative instead of absorbing it, you reclaim a piece of your sovereignty. Every time you sit in uncomfortable silence instead of reaching for distraction, you build the inner fortress that no manipulator can breach. Pause, question, reflect, choose. The question was never whether the world would try to manipulate you. It always does. The question is whether you are developing the psychological qualities of a rescuer or a conformist, and that decision is not made in a crisis. It is made today, right now, in the quiet moments when nobody is watching. If you made it this far, comment Inner Fortress to prove you are building yours. Welcome to the Psyche Project. If this gave you something to think about, subscribe for more. Understanding yourself is the work of a lifetime.